Hello everyone, I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, Microsoft Dynamics GP Overview. We appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to join us. Today's presenter will be Tammy Johnson, a solution architect located in our California office. A couple of housekeeping items we'd like to mention before we begin the presentation. All attendees are in listen-only mode. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please submit them through the GoToWebinar question box, and we'll answer them following the presentation. Also, feel free to email Tammy directly. Her information is up on the screen now, and she would be happy to get back to you as well. Before we jump into the solution, I'd like to take a moment to provide you with some background on Socius and how we work with organizations like yours to accelerate your growth and profitability. An ERP implementation is only as good as the team you put behind it. That's why selecting the right partner is just as critical to a successful ERP implementation as the software solution that you choose. We believe that our background and experience at Socius demonstrate that we are the kind of partner that delivers successful implementation projects and ongoing services that support the growth of your company. Socius is the Latin word for partner or ally, which is the kind of relationship that we try to have with the almost 2,000 organizations we have implemented business management software solutions for over the last 28 years. While implementation projects are a big part of what we do, the true measure of our partnership is demonstrated in the wide array of ongoing services we provide to our clients to ensure that their software solutions continue to align with their goals and meet their changing business needs. This level of service has earned Socius a highly respected reputation in the industry. We have consistently been recognized as a top partner by software industry experts, winning numerous awards from both Microsoft and from independent publications. We've been named to the Microsoft Inner Circle 17 of a possible 21 times, which means we are in the top 1% of all Dynamics partners in the world. And were recently selected as one of only 3 Microsoft Dynamics Master VARs in the U.S., meaning our processes and methodologies are recognized as best practices by Microsoft. Regardless of where you are in your selection process, we encourage you to weigh your software partner decision just as heavily as your software solution decision. Socius has 90 professionals located in multiple offices across the United States. We're headquartered in Columbus, Ohio, and also have locations in Cincinnati, Cleveland, and San Jose, California, as well as virtual teams in Kansas City and Fargo. This slide represents a visual to the Socius methodology recognized by Microsoft. This is how we lay out the plan for the different pieces and parts, building the solution together, deploying it out into the enterprise for everyone to use, and going live and forward into the future to make sure it is a successful implementation. Our defined methodologies allow us to support our 4 key service offerings. Those are comprised of ERP, CRM, business intelligence, and SharePoint solutions. While each of these solutions are powerful standing alone, a true business solution is achieved when these aspects of your business are integrated. Hopefully that provided a brief introduction of who Socius is and what we do. I'd now like to transition the presentation over to Tammy Johnson.
Great, thank you. Let me go ahead and just show my screen here. I only have one slide, and so we're going to very quickly move right into the overview of Dynamics GP. I just wanted to talk for a minute about what you're going to see. We're going to start off kind of at a higher level with the business intelligence and reporting, just some examples of some BI and reporting capabilities provided by Dynamics GP. And then we're going to look at some reminders and alerts, ways that the system can notify you that certain conditions have happened or that you need to do certain things, that you need to take action. We'll dig into some details in inventory, purchasing and payable, sales and receivables, and we'll touch on finance and accounting as well. So with that, I am going to go ahead and share my Dynamics GP window here. Now, what you can see on your screen in that kind of business intelligence and reporting category is what's called Business Analyzer. And I'm actually just going to push the slideshow button here and just let it go through and show you some examples of some key performance indicators and metrics that you can apply to this Business Analyzer desktop application to provide you with key information about your particular your organization. And if you look, this kind of crosses all of the functional areas of Dynamics GP. What you're looking at are, it's again an example of the out-of-the-box key performance indicators and metrics. There are a little over 150 to 200 out-of-the-box metrics and key performance indicators. And these are built using SQL Server reporting services. And that is actually the reporting tool that is part of Microsoft SQL Server, which is really the foundation of Dynamics GP. So the message here is these are just examples, and you can create whatever visual representation of those metrics and key performance indicators that are relevant to your organization. They've included a lot of ratios and things like that, sales by employee, things that are generally important to businesses to know. And so that comes out of the box here, sales per employee, but you can create your own as well. And kind of carrying this forward then, I'm just going to close out of the Business Analyzer here. And we're going to go ahead and just open up GP. You can see on the right-hand side of my home page, I can also display metrics within Dynamics GP as well. And these are the exact same metrics that I would see in the Business Analyzer. It's the exact same, we're accessing the exact same report. So what you end up with is one version of the truth. You don't end up with people taking spreadsheets or taking reports, dropping those numbers into spreadsheets and kind of creating their own metrics. You end up with one version of the truth. So just keep that in mind, that as a full access GP user, a functional user that's in entering transactions, I would have access based on my security permissions to the same information as those users who are more consumers of the data, who aren't necessarily entering transactions. So again, what you're looking at here is my Dynamics GP homepage, and this is a roles-based homepage. If you are a user and you don't have access to a certain function within GP, you're not going to see it on your homepage. You're not going to be able to add it to your homepage. You're not even going to see it as a menu option anywhere. So we're very secure. Again, it's roles-based. But as a user, I can personalize this. And it's not any sort of a development activity. It's just picking the items that you want to add in each of these areas and clicking OK. We've got some quick links, and those are, you can see those kind of in the middle there. Those are just Dynamics GP windows, and we're going to be opening a few of those today. I've also got my reports active, and those are reports that maybe I want to run on a regular basis, and so I don't want to have to navigate to the report. I've just added it to my reports list, and I can access it whenever I want to. What we're going to do now is, I think let's look at a financial report. So I've got these just kind of operational reports, like my GL trial balance, for example. Maybe I'd have a receivables aging or even something like you know, an inventory stock status report or something like that. I'll just take this full screen here. And so these are operational reports that you would use, maybe share with others in the organization as well. But we'd also need to produce financial reports and financial statements. And that is done through Management Reporter, which is the reporting tool for the Microsoft Dynamics ERP solutions. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and open up an income statement. I'm just going to double click. And you can see this is just an example. Keep in mind that the way that I'm accessing this, I don't have to go through Dynamics GP to access this. So this is another way that someone who's not a functional user but is a consumer of the information that the functional user is entering and processing, this is another way that they can have access. So if you've got business unit leaders, managers, you know, individuals who are responsible for a key part of the business, you can provide them with visibility to their piece of the pie, to what they're responsible for, so that they can manage then to that. If you're doing budgeting, they can manage to the budget, for example, or to their goals. So in this example, I have an income statement that's showing me, if you look across the top in the columns, I've got my current period and my year-to-date actual, and then I've got a year-to-date budget. Now Dynamics GP allows me to keep an unlimited number of budgets, and I can actually create those budgets in Excel and synchronize those back into GP for then comparison to actual on my financial reports. Along the side here, you can see these are really accounts, general ledger accounts. I'm just going to double click on advertising expense here. And you can see I've got an account for advertising expense that's 000-6610-00. This is a good example here of a Dynamics GP, an account format. And you can see that I have a 3-segment account format. Mine is department, which is the first 3 characters, and then account, which is the next 4, so that's my natural account. And then that final segment I have set as location. You do not have to use this structure for your accounts. You can use any structure up to 66 alphanumeric characters and up to 10 segments. So you have a lot of flexibility. Keep in mind that you can report and kind of slice and dice your information based on those segments as well. So if you do have departments and managers, you can actually assign a manager or an individual to a segment, and then they can view the reports. They only see what's relevant to them. So what I'm going to do now, here I can see there's 2 accounts that are making up this advertising expense line. I'm just going to double click one more time, and you can see that this has taken me right into the details. So I can see line by line the kind of entry that it was, the date it was done, the amount of the entry. In this case, I can see my vendor, which is Business Week, and I can see my invoice number as well. So this can eliminate a lot of those phone calls that happen that accounting departments have after they publish the financial reports, because the folks that are using those reports can actually do their own research just by clicking in on a particular line. They don't have to call the accounting department and find out what was this invoice for, or who did we pay, or whatever. So that's financial reporting. And you can see I've got lots of examples here, which are, you know, balance sheet and cash flow, consolidation. So if you have multiple companies that you're consolidating, you can actually generate those reports through Management Reporter. So we're going to close this. And I think I'm going to come up here into my to-do area now, and let's talk about some reminders and alerts. I'm going to start with reminders. You can see I have 3 reminders here on my screen. On my home page, I have I'm using payroll, so I've got some I-9s that I need to take a look at that need to be renewed this month. Maybe one of the documents is expiring, and so I need to take a look at those. I've got 17 items that are below their reorder point quantity, and so based on the settings that I've set for my inventory, it's telling me that I might want to take a look and order some of these items. And I've also got 171 payables that are due today. And I can see that that stack of paper for the payables is bigger than any of the other ones, and so that's giving me a visual cue that maybe I want to address this particular reminder first, so that I can get that out of the way and move on to the next largest stack. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to click this link, click the stack, and this has actually opened up a tool that lives inside of Dynamics GP called SmartList. We use SmartList a lot. It allows us to create reminders, of course. We saw how what a reminder would look like on our home page. But this is also a really great ad hoc reporting tool and just a reporting tool in general. Any ERP system out there will allow you to enter transactions. The real value of the system, in my opinion, is how easy it is for a user to get that information out in a form that makes sense to them. So in this case, I'm looking at all the payables that are due today, and in my scenario here, my today is always 4/12/2017, because that's the date on my demo data. But I've just done a search here in the payables transaction area and said, show me all the invoices where the due date is less than today. What columns of information do I want to see? I've only got 4 here, but there's a whole lot more than that that I could add if I wanted to. And then I can save this as a favorite, and you can see here it can be a favorite or a favorite and a reminder. This becomes a great research tool as well, because once I have the results of my query, I can pick any line here and just double click. And this might look familiar. This is that Business Week invoice that we just looked at in our financial report for $123.45. If this had been a multi-currency transaction, which Dynamics GP does support multi-currency capabilities, I would be able to see any revaluation that had been done for this. So this follows the gains and losses rules. You run a process every month to revalue to your back to your functional currency. I can also see if I had applied this, maybe a credit or a partial payment had been applied to this invoice, and I can see my distributions. And this is really where it hits my general ledger. I can have as many as I want. Here I've only got 2. One of them is to accounts payable. And I can even have as many default distribution accounts associated with a vendor as I want. So if I had 5 or 6 accounts, they'd all be here for me to just drop those numbers in for each general ledger distribution. So every transaction stays together in its complete form until you physically go in and clear it. There's no limit to the number of years, the number of transactions, in any of the areas in Dynamics GP. It's completely limited by you and really the infrastructure, the disk space that you have available. So one thing that I can do here is continuing to do research. Maybe I want to find out every transaction that I've ever processed for this Business Week magazine vendor that I have. So I can come up here to this go-to, and there are other areas that I can access as well, like vendor transaction inquiry, for example. And so this is going to show me every transaction that I've ever entered for this vendor, and then I can just keep drilling in to get more information about that. If I wanted to share this with someone, I could just click that print button, and it would generate a piece of paper that looks pretty much like what the results look there with the columns of information. What most what most folks will do when they want to do more with the Smart List is they'll just push this Excel button. And that's going to take all of those results right out into Excel. And you'll notice that the numbers are numbers, the dates are dates. I don't have to parse anything. I don't have to do any reformatting. My data's come out clean. It's Excel at this point, so I can do whatever I want. If I want to filter or total or make notes on this, I can do whatever I choose to do. So this is, and just to show you, I'm going to go down to the bottom here. So 172 with my header goes back to my 171 transactions. So this is a static report, a static result that has been exported from Dynamics GP. I can also use GP as my reporting tool. So I can do live links back into GP. I can also do more of a data warehouse scenario where I've created some cubes, and this is just one of the components of Dynamics GP called Analysis Cubes for Excel that allows me to periodically update my data warehouse. Some of our clients do it every day. And then you can go in and quickly and easily, using tools and an interface that you already know how to use. This is just a pivot table in Excel. And I can, move things around if I want to. Maybe what I really care about is my margin percent. And I can see this by item, but maybe I want to know the customers that purchased that as well. So I can come in here and let's add the customer name. So again, this is just an Excel pivot table at this point, but we're hooking into that data warehouse and very quickly restating. Here I just switched. I went from customer customer by item. Now it's item and customer. So you can see how quickly and easily it is to understand what's happening, to spot trends, and this is using tools that you already know how to use. It's just Excel. All right. So there's one other kind of alert that I want to talk about, and it's called a business alert. And what this does is it allows me to set some criteria and ask the system to notify me or whoever, so a select set of individuals, when that criteria has been met. And so, and they might not be users in Dynamics GP. And so in this case, that a reminder might be fine for GP users, but for someone who's outside of the system, maybe it's not okay. Maybe we need to send them an email. In this example, where we've got customers who are on hold. And so I just define my criteria. So when hold equals 1, which means the box is checked, I want to send an alert to administrator@contoso.com, and it's sending a report that gives me a list of all of the customers, in this case the customers that are on hold. So just one more way that the system allows us to provide access to information about what's happening inside of Dynamics GP. Okay, I think I'm going to move on here, and let's talk about purchasing. I want to bring up a vendor real quickly here. Let's find a good one. There we go. Just a couple of things that I want to point out. I mean, obviously, we're going to collect their name and address information. I can have as many addresses as I choose in Dynamics GP. And I can even, on a transaction, have a separate remit to address for the same vendor. So the system knows if the remit to address is different, then you have to have 2 checks instead of 1 check. I can also use a class, and you'll see this throughout the system on most of the master files, so customers, vendors, inventory items, fixed assets, employees. What this does, first of all, is it allows me to segment my data for reporting. And so that's important. In this case, maybe I want to see all of my U.S. inventory vendors. And so I would be able to now generate reports and queries based on that class ID. But more importantly, I think, is that using a class ID allows you to set up new records really quickly. When a record is assigned to a class, so in this case, if I were to set up a new vendor and assign it to this U.S. vendors inventory class, the vendor would take on all of the attributes of the class, and then I could make any tweaks and changes and fine-tune it on that vendor record. But things like, is it a 1099 vendor, because GP will allow me to track and generate 1099 information. What's the shipping method? Is there any tax involved? What's my credit limit with the vendor? So there's a lot of different, what are my payment terms? There's a lot of information associated with a vendor that, that I can go ahead and apply automatically just by choosing a class. So I'm going to come down here to the bottom to this address area. And just to show you, all the information that was in the class is here in options in the vendor. And this is where I can fine-tune all of that once I apply the class. So vendors, obviously, we can send them a check. But what we're seeing more and more is organizations implementing an electronic payment to their vendors. And Dynamics GP does support this and has tools built in to be able to create that link. And actually, instead of generating a check, you generate a file that you then send off to your bank, and they pay your vendor electronically. And kind of going hand in hand with that, I can also, I'm going to come here to this email button, I can also generate a remittance for my vendor so that they know what I've paid them. And in association with that, email that remittance to them directly. So your payables process could be paperless. You wouldn't have to generate any paper, any checks, any remittance. You wouldn't have to put anything in the mail. It can all be done electronically. Okay, so let's talk about generating some purchase orders. So what I've done is my inventory has been set up so that I have some minimums and maximums and some order points and some reorder levels defined for various items in my inventory items in my system. And I have these items set to be reordered using the purchase order generator. I can manually enter a purchase order as well if I choose, but in this case I'm actually generating the purchase order based on those quantities. And you can see I've got 3 here that are ready to go based on the quantities. I can override the quantities, the costs, the vendors at any point here. I've got some alerts here because on these 2 items, the Mad Cup and the Mad Straw, I don't have a cost. It'll still allow me to generate the PO. At some point, I'm going to have to put in a cost. Now, this one, you can see the big X here in the red circle. That means that there's a key field that's missing. And in this case, it's the vendor ID. Obviously, I can't generate a purchase order without a vendor. So all I would do is I would just click Generate Purchase Orders, and it would create automatically all of my POs for me. Let's just open up purchase order entry here. And we can talk for a minute about the process. Let's find something that's good. So one thing I'll point out here, I'm not going to go into this at all, but there is full project accounting capabilities in Dynamics GP as well. And so in this case, if I were to apply a project and a cost category or a task to this particular purchase order, it would commit that purchase order cost to the project for me. But in this case, I've got a purchase order here that's been released. Typically, the process is going to be, it's a 3-way match. So you would generate your purchase order. which you could email to your vendor. And then when you receive your goods, you would match those goods to that purchase order. Then accounting would receive the invoice and match the invoice to the receiving. Tracking landed costs as well, so there might be duty, freight, consignment fees, whatever that might be associated with bringing in a piece of inventory or a number of inventory items into your location. And so those could be applied as well. But the goal is that you've got this three-way match, you've got good internal controls for being able to have segregation of duties in that process. Keep in mind as well, if you choose to, you could do the receipt and the invoice at the same time. Maybe your process dictates that separation and segregation of duties is not important, and so you could do those at the same time as well. Once I post the invoice for this, it's ready for payment in my payables, and I can run my whatever normal payables process that I would run. I'm going to come down here, and we're going to look at the orders that I need to ship today. And this interface that we're going to be looking at is a little different. It's another option that you have for navigating around in Dynamics GP. There are a number of ways that you can get to a window, get to a process, get to information. And the one that you choose is really dependent on your organization and the individuals who are doing the actual processing. So the example here, the window that you're looking here is called a navigation list. And I like navigation lists a lot because they allow me to process large amounts of data very quickly, very efficiently. What I've done here is I've created and saved a list called Orders to Ship Today. And what this is, I'm going to kind of come down here and show my filter that I've done here just so that you can get an idea of how this works. I want to see everything that's not in history, so I want to see everything that's open, where the requested ship date is today, and the document type is order. And then I save this as Orders to Ship Today. Now I can see a lot about each order just by clicking on the order. So in this case, for Alton Manufacturing, I can see there's 37 items on this order. I can see, of course, who it's for. I can see the requested ship date. Hopefully that's today because that's what I've indicated. All the address information. I can drill in it, even drill in if I want to. Let's just pick an order here. Let's pick this one. I'm going to just double click on this. And this is now, I'm in my sales transaction entry window. And this is where the transactions actually come from. This is where we enter our sales orders. I can start with a quote, move that quote to an order, transfer that quote or that order to an invoice. I can pick any of the document types individually as well, but they can be transferred around among each other as well. So you make one entry and make adjustments as you go along and continue to transfer that through the process. So I've indicated who my customer is. I want to point out here this yellow lines, this yellow page that you see, and you can see on this one it's white. These are notes. And so in this case, there's a customer note. Here's a standard note. I just typed that in. And so you have a visual cue when there is a note associated with a customer, and you know to look at that. Maybe there's information that might be important. You'll see these white pages or yellow if there's a note already associated throughout GP. So you can see I could have a note here associated with my sales order, with my inventory item, with my batch. So this is in the April batch, with my warehouse, with my currency. So all through the system, I do have the ability to track those notes. Okay, so I've indicated my customer. And I'm just going to expand this for a second. you can see there's a whole lot of information that's available just by expanding that customer. I can see all kinds of holds that might be associated with this order. I can see any activity for the customer. This is just like that vendor window that we looked at that lists all the transactions. So I'm able to see all of that right here in my sales transaction. I can also view order history. So if I want to look at history for a particular customer and apply maybe an item that they had purchased in the past, I can do that as well. I'm going to expand this line item here. So in GP, you'll see this little detail button here quite a bit, and it's just expanding the line item to show you more information. And so in this case, I'm able to see what the item is. I can see the cost. I can see the requested dates. I can see that this is fully fulfilled and ready to invoice. I can also see what inventory location I'm pulling this from, as well as what customer's ship-to address I'm shipping to. So I could have multiple ship-to addresses on the same order. And it will produce the pick, pack, and ship documents accordingly. GP smart enough that it knows when you've got an order that's shipping to multiple addresses. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to check a few of these boxes here. And you see as I check these in my action pane here at the top, things are starting to light up. And so, for example, I could come in here and I could print my picking tickets and my packing slips for a particular group of shipments. I can also transfer them to invoice. So maybe my process is I do my pick, pack, ship. I get back the documentation from the warehouse. I sit down. I check them off as I'm going. And then I transfer them in bulk to invoice. So you can do this all in bulk. You don't have to do it one by one. You can do it, but one by one if you want, but you don't have to. Notice as well I've got some red indicators here. These particular orders are, for whatever reason, on hold. And so those aren't going to ship. Even if I try to process them, they're not going to ship. And so if I were to, let's just open one of these. I don't know what this is for, but you can see it's telling me that this is on hold. And I didn't enter a purchase order, and I just turned that on. So let me do that. But you can see it's been approved, but we haven't, in my process, received the final payment yet. And so I'm still waiting for that final payment. When I receive that final payment, I can apply it, remove the hold, and then it can be released for shipment. So there's a really good example of using what's called a process hold. So that's the sales transaction function, the distribution, the order fulfillment within Dynamics GP. Also, one of the components of the sales functions in Dynamics GP is collections. And so as I'm posting those invoices, I'm creating receivables and crossing my fingers and hoping that my customers are going to pay me. If I have collection issues, I can use collections management to help me kind of drive that process. So I can set up actions and emails with follow-up actions. I can apply dates to those follow-up actions. And actually, let's go up 30 days. And I can see here's that they promised to pay on 4/19. I can open that note and take a look at it. They said they'd pay me the next check run. Maybe it's past 4/19. Maybe I need to generate a new note and call them back again and say, you know, you didn't pay. I haven't received this based on the date that you promised. You know, can we let's put together another action item here so that I know when you're going to pay me. I can also generate email. And so you can set up templates so that here's an email template. And I'm just going to click Substitute here, and you can see it's filled in with all the relevant information for this particular customer. I can also add an action item again with a due date so that I know I'm prompted to follow up with this particular customer to make sure that they've paid within the promises that they've made. So that's collections management. The last area that I want to focus on is finance, and I think I want to start with fixed assets. Dynamics GP does provide full asset tracking, and this is, from acquisition through retirement, including all of your general ledger posting. So if I were to pretend I'm going to enter a new asset here and come up and click my purchase button, I can see all of the fixed asset purchases that I've made, and I can just choose one, and you can see the description came right over. It was a projector that I bought, and it was $795. And if I expand this, I can see the invoice, and I can drill right back in and look at that original invoice. So my acquisition of that particular asset and all of the related transactions stay with the asset. I'm actually just going to bring up another sample here because this one's been completed. So you can see that I've got different levels of location that I can track, and I can actually apply a custodian to this as well, and this will look at my employee table in Dynamics GP and allow me to choose who is responsible for that asset. All of the accounting part is really tied to the asset book. And you can see I have 3 books here. You can have as many as you want. You can see I've got a couple of tax books as well as my internal book, and this is the book that posts to my general ledger. I can choose my depreciation method, and then on a monthly basis, I come in and run my depreciation. I do my retirement, any transfers that I have, any acquisitions, and then I run my depreciation. And once that depreciation process is run, I can go ahead and push the transactions then to my general ledger. So end-to-end for my asset from acquisition to retirement, I can maintain the entire life of my fixed asset. I'm going to move back over here into my quick links. And talk briefly about journal entries. There's some nice capabilities here that GP provides, including the ability, and this is not just in general ledger, this is throughout the system, but to generate recurring transactions. So at whatever frequency, you can see I've even got a miscellaneous frequency here. At whatever frequency I need, I can set this transaction to recur. And when it's time to post it, I just post it, and it'll set itself up again for the next time. I can also use these as templates because I can clear the amounts but keep the accounts. So it makes it really nice if you're doing, I don't know, an outsourced payroll and you just want to have those accounts sitting there and you fill in the amounts that apply. I can also do reversing entries, and this is, I think, really important for those of you that are doing accruals every month. You generate your accruals, and then you need to remember to reverse those accruals. And GP actually provides you with the ability to do that automatically. So, for example, if this was a 430, and I meant to type 30 and I typed 40. If this was a, you're not going to let me do it now. Oh, yeah. Let me do this. So if this was a 430 transaction, and I am just not doing this right, operator error here, and I wanted to reverse it on 5/1, I just go ahead and indicate that here, and when I post my transaction, it's going to post to 430, and it's going to immediately reverse itself with the date of 5/1. So I don't have to remember to do that. It's going to do both sides of that transaction at once. I can also process intercompany transactions, and so a long time ago, when we talked about financial reporting, I mentioned consolidations. And if you do have related entities that are doing intercompany type transactions, you can run those through Dynamics GP, keep track of your due tos and due froms. You actually define a relationship between the companies, and then you can use Management Reporter to then report on your results, and including eliminations if that's something that you want to do. I can copy a journal entry. I can also correct a journal entry, so that's important. If you make a mistake, you can't change a transaction, but you can actually back it out and correct it with reference to the original transaction. So you don't have to make the entry. The system will make the entry for you. And you can see in the bottom here, it's just debits and credits. The good thing about Dynamics GP is that it will not allow you to post unless your debits equal your credits. So you're not going to ever be out of balance. And I think the last thing that I'd planned to talk about functionally here was budgeting. And we talked about this early on as well. Dynamics GP has a couple of budgeting options. One of those is Excel-based budgeting. And so I can actually create my budgets in Excel. I can create them based on segments. So back to business unit leaders, managers. If you have individuals that are responsible for a portion of managing the budget for your business, you could actually give them their budget, allow them to populate their budget, and then that can all be done through Excel. And then you can go ahead and just import that back in and consolidate the budget so that you've got all of the components in your top line budget. But you can see if I look at this, I could just enter this manually through Dynamics GP as well. But you can see I've got every month for my budget here. When it's time to go to a new budget year, I can create filters for different accounts or segments, and then apply different increases or decreases, different methods to increase or decrease the budget. So you can create a really good baseline, maybe 10% more than last year, or 5% less than last year's budget, or whatever sort of calculation you would want to process. And then that gives you a good baseline then, and you can just go in and make the changes that you want to make to your budgets. Remember that these apply to your reporting as well. So you would be able to take these budgets and move them into your financial reports so that you can compare your budget to actual. So with that, that's about all I had to talk about. There's a couple, I actually do have a couple other slides. I think I lied. So let me bring my slide deck back up here. And there we go. I think we covered everything. Everything on the agenda there. I did want to mention some next steps if you had any. If you're interested in moving forward, you can request a business strategy assessment. And also definitely continue to attend our webinars. We have regular webinars, and those can be found on our events page. And I also just wanted to put my contact information up here one more time so that if anyone has any questions, you can definitely feel free to contact me.